I'm not sure on that one. What I want to do right now is to take off the head. I'm glad I did because there was still mixing of the oil and the coolant happening in the engine. So if you can see, welcome back to another episode of Broken Mirror, guys. If you are new to the channel and you like seeing cars go from being worth $500 to $5,000 in a short amount of time, then you're in the right spot. Make sure to go down, hit the subscribe button, click the notifications bell so you get alerted every time I put out an episode. Also, if you're new to the channel, we've previously been working on my 2005 Hyundai Tucson. Everyone who's been here has been asking me about the Avalon, and I keep forgetting to mention it. Avalon's still for sale. I've had a lot of inquiries and not one person has shown up yet. So still trying, we'll see how it goes. Not sure yet how it's supposed to have 2 people today, already nothing, so I don't know. But getting back to the Hyundai. In the last episode, if you weren't here, I ended up finally spray painting this whole thing. Looks a heck of a lot better. Still not perfect, definitely not in a paint shop, but as far as being on the side of the street with some paint match spray paint and some 2K clear, I'm very happy with the results. This whole entire clear coat was completely destroyed. So if you go back to the first couple of episodes, you see this car just looks rough. So anyway, I'm very happy with how the paint came out. Also, if you haven't been here, I ended up buying this car for $700 and it has 136,000 miles. I got it so cheap because of the paint that I had already mentioned, but also because when I bought it, the guy tried to do a head gasket on here, and I think he put everything at a time. The engine would run, there was no hard hitting from the engine or anything like that, but it definitely had major misfires and just wouldn't stay running on its own. Kind of had to slam the throttle. I had to shift it from drive to neutral at every stop sign just to get it home here. It wasn't an easy task, but upon doing some more research and trying to get this thing running, making sure that it was a timing issue, found out that the head gasket is still leaking. Not coolant to oil, but oil out of the side of the block or on the top of the block. So in the last episode, I tried to get this thing into top dead center so I can make sure that I could verify the timing. Still kind of learning about all that stuff, whether cylinder 1 was on the compression stroke, whether it wasn't. Still kind of learning about all that. I don't think it would matter if the dot for top dead center is lined up perfectly on a 4-cylinder. I don't think I have to worry about whether it's on compression stroke or not, but I'm not positive. So I'm going to go around in a circle one more time, line back up the dots for top dead center, make sure that this thing is correctly on the spot. Once I do that, I'm going to take back off the valve cover, just verify my thoughts that the cams are 180 degrees at a time of the crank. I think that's the issue. I'm definitely not positive. So gonna get started with trying to time it, then we'll take out the valve cover, kind of see where everything's at. So I'm gonna get started, see you in a bit. All right, I tried to take off the pulley. Turns out it was on top dead center. It was perfect. Everything was lined up. So I'm not too worried about that anymore. I did try to take off the pulley. Unfortunately, I have the extension cord at the salon right now and my compressor is unplugged. So I needed the extension cord to plug in the compressor to get enough air to break that bolt loose and take that pulley off. So unfortunately, I don't have that right now. I'm gonna grab it tomorrow morning, try it again tomorrow morning. But right now what I like to do is try to take off the tensioner bearing on the timing belt and then try to loosen up the bolts to the head to take that out. That's my goal. I'll probably drain the coolant first, just in case there's some coolant left. I know it was leaking at the water pump level, but I don't know if that level's higher or lower than the head. So anyway, I'm gonna get started. Talk to you guys in a bit. All right, guys, I took off the thermostat housing, the thermostat, the timing belt tensioner, took off the camshaft mounts, took out the timing chain and timing chain tensioner. I couldn't tell if the timing chain was set up correctly. I actually have to go look back. There's no markings on the timing chain to kind of let you know where it's supposed to be. I'm not sure on that one. What I want to do right now is to take off the head. I think I have everything off that should be in the way, so I think this should be pretty easy. There is like a way you have to slowly release it, just like with the Audi. You want to take it off correctly in the right sequence so that the head doesn't warp as it comes off. So anyway, I'm gonna get started with that. See you guys in a bit. All right, guys, I took the head off and I actually checked the head immediately to make sure that it was squared and that it's flat. Surface seems to be pretty good. It might be like, what is it, 0.001, 0.002 tenths or whatever it's called, tenths or millimeters, I don't know, off. I mean, very, very fine, if it is at all, honestly. But what I did discover was taking off the head bolts, they were barely on. The guy never torqued them down. So that's why it was pouring oil out of the head gasket. So realistically, I probably could have just torqued it down, maybe gotten away with it. Probably not, just because the seals were already crushed, they were already wet. Probably always be an issue from here on out. I'm glad I did, because there was still mixing of the oil in the coolant happening in the engine. So if you can see kind of the white foam, this is actually some rust as well. So yeah, there was definitely still some mixing going on. And actually down here, I don't know if you guys can tell in the camera, but right here is the darkest spot of all the oil, which kind of checks out that the oil was leaking from right here. So feeling confident that this is the main issue for the oil leak. Also, I'm pretty excited that there was no leaking into the cylinders themselves. They all look to be fairly clean. Doesn't look like anything ran onto the cylinders, which is good. But also, I'm wondering, this also could have been just a compression issue. If the head wasn't tightened down all the way and there was exhaust pushing out the side of the head gasket, it could be a compression issue as to why I was having misfires or why it was running so rough. I'm not necessarily 100% on that, but I do think it was a possibility. But ultimately, I do think that the cams were just out of time to the crank. I think that's the end reason why it was so bad, even if there was some blow by. It's crazy though, because as I was taking off the head before, I kind of looked in the back, I found this random 2-wire plug that I believe to be a knock sensor in the back of the block. I think. I don't know. In fact, if any of you guys know what that thing is, but I think that's what it is, it's a knock sensor. But if that thing was unplugged, that could also cause an issue. But if that thing was off, I believe that would also send some misreadings to the engine to fire incorrectly. I first need to figure out what that thing is on the back of the engine, try to see if I can find a new plug for it, new harness, see where it plugs up to. I have no idea where it plugs to. But I think this is gonna wrap it up for tonight. It's starting to get dark. I'm gonna try to tackle putting the head and the head gasket back on tomorrow, cranking everything down, setting up the timing on the timing chain, getting all that situated as well. So anyway, guys, I think that's gonna wrap up for the night. See you in the morning. All right, guys, it is the next day. I've been running around grabbing the extension cord, some tools. I ended up finally getting one of those angle like readers for when you crank down bolts an extra 90 degrees or an extra 70 degrees, whatever. This one requires, I think it's extra 60 to 66 degrees. And I just knew I was kind of getting in an area that I'm not going to be easily able to read. I ended up going and buying one of those little additions that I can just slap on to the end of my 1/2-inch pry bar. So what I want to do, originally I wanted to get started trying to take off the wheel, take off the pulley, do the timing belt and all that. I actually think I'm going to go the opposite route just based on time. I think I have about a little less than 2 hours right now to try to do as much work as I can. I have a guy that's coming to look at the AVALON at around 4, which gives me about 2 hours to finish up, take a shower, go meet the guy, hopefully sell this thing. So I might end up finishing this episode a little early. I'm not sure yet. I might come back and try to work on it. All depends how the sale goes, what all happens. But for right now, what I would like to do is to actually take off the old head gasket, clean up that surface, make sure that it's clean, like flat, level, good clean for putting on the new gasket. And then once I reach that point, I'll probably blow it out and kind of go from there. So I'm gonna get started. See you in a bit. All right guys, that last little bit with the wire took me probably like another 30 minutes to get done. I was really having a hard time trying to figure out which wires went where. I think I found it. I believe the yellow is the ground going back to the wire harness, and that the ground is probably black on the engine knock sensor side. I'm guessing. I kind of just threw it out there, giving it a shot. So I ended up taping it up the best I could just to kind of get past, test this whole thing, make sure nothing gets in there to ground it out, any of the sort. So I taped it all up. If it comes to be wrong and I need to switch those wires around, I can go back in, still switch them around. If they end up being right, then I'll try to figure out a way to go in there and solder those wires together permanently. That's the goal. But for right now, what I want to do is to try to get the head back on here. So I'm going to put on the new head gasket, lay the head back down on top, and then I want to start mounting the head back onto the block. So that's the goal. Let's get at it. All right guys, it's a few hours later and I figured I'd just kind of bring you all up to speed. Basically, I was fighting to get that head on. I couldn't do it, and I was starting to scar near where those dowels are supposed to fit into the head. I was starting to scar that on the head, so I got pretty nervous. Finally just took it away, took a break. I ended up needing to pack up and clean up anyway, just because the person who was supposed to buy the AVALON was coming. So I packed up, took a shower, got ready. Then the guy was an hour late, which sucks. 8 into the time. We checked it out, they liked it, but then they couldn't get money because they were an hour late. We couldn't go to the bank anymore. Hopefully they're coming back in the morning to purchase the car. I was gonna kind of wait and show you that in the morning, but honestly, it's already Wednesday evening and I'm trying to put out this video for tomorrow. Being that he was already an hour late this time, I'm imagining he's probably gonna be late tomorrow, and if he's not here by 12 when he says, it's gonna be 1, and the video is supposed to be out in an hour. It's not enough time. So with all that said, I do think I'm gonna have to wrap it up here and then fill you guys in on the next episode, whether it sells. Sorry, didn't intentionally mean to leave you with a cliffhanger. Actually, 2 cliffhangers for the head gasket. Just kind of the way everything worked out this week. But definitely next episode, wrapping up the head gasket. I've been weary because I needed to have time free. I didn't want to put the engine on block stands, then start tackling it and get stuck with the engine at night on blocks. Looks bad for the cops, especially with all the scenarios that have been going on with Karen. It just wasn't a smart move. So I'm trying to do this very smart strategically so that I have no issues. But definitely in the next episode, I will be finishing that up and hopefully selling the AVALON. If it sells for what I'm hoping, it'll be very much worth it. I don't think I'm gonna buy another car that's gold and that old anymore. It was supposed to be a fast flip, supposed to be a quick flip, but I think that color attracts an older demographic normally, and they're a lot more patient. So they're not ready to hop on a buy as much as a kid is, and it just slows down the pace. Most of my cars get sold to someone probably 40 and younger, I would say, most of the time. It's very rare that I actually sell to someone older, and when I do, they're far more patient and they'll haggle me much harder, and it ends up not being worth all the headache of doing the flip. In fact, the VW wagon that I sold a while back, that guy beat me up, and he was an older gentleman. So it's just a different mentality, different mindset. People younger kind of buy faster, just smarter for me to try to aim towards that crowd. That's why the Mazda 3s go like that. They go so quick. Anyway, with all that said, I think that is going to wrap up this episode of Broke Premiere. Sorry it's a short one, but definitely going to be a good episode next time. So until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll catch you again on Sunday. Later, guys.